is Manon, and I am sorry, Andy, I should have given you the the go ahead. Hi, so my name is Manon, and I will be your moderator for this session. Welcome to OER Champions, a model for building an open pedagogy culture at an open access community college. Our speakers today are Dr. Liza Long, Greg Wilson, and Susan Adelot, as well as Jason Roach, I apologize, from the College of Western Idaho. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Before we pass it on to you, I just have a few logistics items. Live captioning is available during this presentation. You can toggle this on and off using the attendee controls on a desktop that will be at the bottom of your screen. The session is recorded, and the recording will be provided on the conference website after the conference. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat box, and we encourage you to engage with the speakers and with the other attendees that way as well. If you have any technical difficulties, you can contact the organizers at the bottom of the Sketch website. I just put a link to that in the chat, and Liza posted a link to the slide deck as well. So Liz, Greg, Susan, and Jason, thank you so much for being here today. I will pass it over to you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to present, Manon. We're really excited to be here today. And we're going to start by introducing ourselves, but we would also love, oops, let me get back one slide. We would also love if while we're introducing ourselves, if you wouldn't mind maybe sharing a little bit about you, what your role is, what brought you here today in the chat. We'd love to get to know you a little better as well. So Greg, kick it off.
Yeah, well, we're obviously so excited to be here, and thank you for the invitation to present today at the Missouri A and OER conference. It's always exciting when it's Open Ed Week because there's so many activities going on. So thank you for taking time to learn about what we're doing at the College of Western Idaho. As you can see at the top of the list, not in order of importance, but just because I'm the Assistant Dean of General Education, part of that job just means helping to support open educational resources. So that fits very well with general education. A lot of the 100-level courses at our school are those common courses in OpenStax or other places where you can really find great quality textbooks for those introductory level courses. So that's kind of my job here, and it's the faculty like Liza, Susan, and our librarians like Jason that do a lot of the heavy lifting. But I would just point out that as of this spring, I think 50% of our general education sections do use open educational resources. So we're climbing, and it's exciting to work on that together.
Susan?
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, hi, I'm Susan Adelot. I'm a math professor at CWI, and I'm an OER champion. And I'm happy today I'll get to share some of my experience using OER. So, thanks.
Jason, you're up.
I'm Jason Roach. I'm the librarian for instruction at CWI. We do not have a full-time OER librarian at CWI, and so that falls under my remit as well, which is great because I get to work with my co-presenters and the faculty that they're trying to draw into OER. So good stuff. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking to you today.
Well, I couldn't do what I do without Jason, so we're glad we have you even part-time, Jason. I'm Liza Long. I'm an associate professor of English, and I'm also our Idaho, excuse me, I've been in a few presentations today. I'm our Idaho State Board of Education open education representative, so I get to work with people from across the state on open education initiatives. And is Eric here? I don't know if Eric made it in.
I'm not sure he made it in yet.
Well,
maybe someone can send that link I'll forward that to Eric.
Oh yeah, if you don't mind. But Eric Miner will hopefully be able to join us. He is the newest member of our team. He's a professor in social sciences, and he works with that school on their open education resources. So as we get started, I asked you to introduce yourselves in the chat, and a few of you have done that, thank you. But we're also really curious just about where you already are with OER adoption at your campuses. You know, Greg shared that we've really thanks to his leadership, seen some kind of amazing adoption rates at our school, and we'll talk more about what that model looks like. I assume that's why you're here today. But I'd love to know a little bit more about what OER adoption looks like at your school. Has it been something that has been relatively easy? Is it something you struggle with? What are some challenges you're facing? And if you can think about those questions while we keep going and put them in the chat, just like where are you at with OER adoption? We might circle back to that at the end. I'm hoping we'll have time for some conversation at the end of our presentation. But think about that question where you are right now. Greg, do you want to share this slide and talk about some of the challenges to OER adoption?
Well, sure. I think we are all kind of aware of some of these challenges. At least at College of Western Idaho, some of the important work that needs to be done to transfer a course from a traditional textbook or even like a paid textbook that has homework practice to something that's OER is a big challenge. So adjuncts, obviously, or a part-time faculty don't really have extra support to do that, and even when they do, it's a lot of the time that it takes to do that is an issue. I think quality of resources might be a challenge, although as I said in our first year courses that's not as much, but when we get up into the 200 level courses in those specific fields, to create an OER for your specific discipline, if you don't have one out there already, is difficult. So we want to recognize that OER adoption is not always as easy as we hope it would be. Some of the people today on our call will talk about the challenges they face specifically in creating OER for their fields, but we want to make everyone aware that if you're planning to adopt OER, it's good to have a frank discussion with faculty, with the library, with other people to say, this is a choice. It does take time and effort, but hopefully the end is worth it. And we're going to also talk about some of the benefits to OER later.
Eliza, you're muted.
It wouldn't be a Zoom meeting if somebody wasn't muted. Sorry, I had to grab a cough drop. I just wondered if Susan or anyone else had anything to chime in on this, like if any of these stood out to you, Susan, as Greg was talking about them.
Yeah, so in our math department, for several years prior to trying OER, we heavily relied on the publisher materials. As Greg indicated, we used a platform for our homework. And so it was challenging to think about how could we transition from publisher content to an OER, something that would be free for students. And there are several platforms out there that are free. The one that we chose was My Open Math, and I'll talk to
you
later.
Get to share that whole case study. I know.
Yeah,
I know in the English department, one of the things that we had concerns about was the quality of the resources. That was some pushback that we got from our instructors, and also the real concern about the time and the bandwidth and capacity. So these are some pretty common things across colleges if they resonate with you. We're hopefully going to provide you with a few possible solutions or ideas for ways to address these challenges. So Greg, our model.
Yeah, and so this is just one of the things that we do at College of Western Idaho. And to be clear, there was some state funding over the past 3 years to help us implement this. And that is a huge benefit. I saw someone in the chat that mentioned that when you have money to support faculty for stipends, and if you have money to give course release to faculty like OER Champions, this is a really great model. But even if you don't have funding, I think there's ways that we can encourage OER adoption. And one of the ways that we found that's been most powerful is trying to identify faculty in each school. So we have 5 different schools like arts and humanities, social sciences, the School of Math and Science, those type of things. Identifying faculty who are already leaders in their discipline in creating and implementing OER as those kind of voices in the room that can be a champion or a guide for other faculty who may not be aware of how OER works or be a little bit leery of it. And so we combine that with some other things. We do have biweekly drop-in meetings for faculty that have questions about adopting OER, or if they're using OER, if they have issues, it's a problem-solving meeting. And then we have awards that we give out every professional development day for excellence in OER, just to kind of raise the awareness of what's possible when faculty really get behind investing their time in OER. Unfortunately, that investment in time is not always an equal investment in the money that we can offer, but we do feel that there's a lot of faculty out there who, once they understand the power of OER, how it can be tailored specifically to every lesson in your class, and how students can have that on the first day as access and then keep it after they leave. We feel like there's faculty who are there, we just need to find them. And so that's what we kind of did with our OER Champions model.
Yeah, and I wanted to add too, just from the state perspective, you all, Missouri obviously is doing some things right to throw a conference like this. So you apparently do have some really interested and engaged folks in your state. One of the most valuable learning communities that I've been able to participate in my entire career as a faculty member have been our Zoom drop-in meetings statewide. So every week on a Monday at our lunch hour, people from all around the state can drop into this meeting. You don't have to attend, but generally we have between 5 and 10 people from across the state from all of our different institutions. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us to network, to share ideas, and to kind of grow the overall sense, right? We don't feel like we're working in isolation. We can partner with our sister institutions. So I personally have really appreciated that. And I also put a question in the chat about Z degrees. Greg didn't really toot his own horn on this, but this has been something that Greg has really led as our assistant dean with general education. And so we now have 4 of these Z degree pathways, which means that students can complete the entire program with no or low cost textbook fees. And that, I think that's a pretty exciting thing for us to be able to offer our students. The College of Western Idaho is, we mentioned open access, so anyone can attend. We have grown from, I think, 1,200 students when we opened to more than 30,000 students. We're one of the largest institutions, and that's just been so we opened in 2009 and we're now in 2025. So really rapid growth, and for us to be able to support our faculty and also provide that Z degree option for our students who are often first generation. It's been really rewarding to see. And Jason, who's invaluable to our support, is going to talk more about what he does in that part-time role, which could be full-time.
Sometimes I clean things up. But one of the things that I appreciate about our OER Champions model is that faculty, Liza and Susan are experienced veteran OER users, and they're well known. And so when we're in school or department meetings and they're advocating either somewhat formally for OER or just taking the opportunity to make an impromptu plug, it carries some weight because they're respected colleagues who are using it successfully and advocating for it with some passion. I try to do the same, but hey, the library sometimes gives you answers that you would rather have had to be otherwise. But that said, I field a lot of questions from people. I'm one of the sort of first responders that people can come to with questions. Some of the resources that you'll see on the slide are LibGuides, which are mine, and you're welcome to obviously remix and reuse them. And they're trying to answer a lot of questions about some of the questions that get in the way of people making a commitment or dipping their toe into OER, which I think is one of the dilemmas that our Champions model helps answer as well. But the more opportunities we have to to remind interested faculty that no, it doesn't mean that you're committed to authoring an entire textbook yourself from scratch, or no, it doesn't mean that you have to find and identify and seek copyright permissions for a textbook that in its entirety serves your purpose. There's a whole bunch of opportunities and a whole bunch of ways you can start. So those are some of the kinds of conversations I have with people. And then also we have a very large career and technical education program. And those are often interestingly large cost textbook expenditures for students as well. And sometimes there'll be instructors who need an updated chapter for some aspect of electrical engineering, and we can solve that problem with some shared discovery work as well. So I'm delighted to be a part of our OER work. I think it really does make a difference to students, and I think one of the things that faculty sometimes forget as well is that interacting with texts in Pressbooks, for example, which is the publishing platform that we use, is a fairly native experience for most of our students, and they embrace it and are pretty comfortable with it from the outset. So that's an additional incentive to dig in.
Oh, thanks, Jason. I wonder if you could check one thing for me. I was just trying to post the links to your amazing LibGuide stuff in the chat, and it's asking for credentials to log in. I don't know if there's a way to have a publicly accessible one.
I'll double check. LibGuides are usually searchable, but things.
Do you mind just checking?
Things change without my knowledge sometimes. Yeah.
Great. And did you have anything else you wanted to say about the slide? I wanted to share 2 other examples for this slide really quickly with Pressbooks that people might have thought about. This isn't related to my presentation, but one of the things I love about CWI and having support like Jason is that we've been able to bring students into the mix. So I just shared a link. I'll share this really quickly just so you can see it. This is a publication that my English 211 students have been creating for quite a while. And I actually was doing a search in an OER repository. It's been 5-star rated on Merlot. So apparently it's useful to other people, but my students themselves come in and create this Pressbooks. So when you're thinking about, ways to engage students and get their adoption, that can be one really fun thing. And then we also had this, and Jason's been really helpful with this. We've had this undergraduate research journal that we put together. We're transitioning to use Pressbooks for, we're partnering with our Connections project, which is like an undergraduate research conference. So we're going to transition that journal toward being more associated with Connections. But these are just ways that you can build support across your campus by partnering with people and also get students involved in creating open education resources. And students are often our best advocates when you think about growing the use of OER. So Susan, you're up on math.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Liza. So like I mentioned earlier, our department, the math department, has in the past and is currently still relying heavily on publisher content, but we have offered OER sections of several classes. The ones that I've been involved with are courses that use OpenStax books, and they're listed here on the page, on the slide. And then I've mentored 2 other faculty who have taught with OER materials, and one of those faculty members has gone on to do another course. We call it technical math. So it is exciting to see someone that you've mentored be able to, create their own course with their own OER materials. Like I said, the textbooks that I've chosen to use for my OER come from OpenStax. And if you're not familiar with them, you can, Liza provided the link in the chat. And then to tell you a little bit about My Open Math, it's a platform that has a lot of resources available. A lot of questions, math questions, have already been coded in and are available to select. But additionally, there are what are called sponsored courses that for example, there's the California ZTC project has created several courses that are available to copy. So that's really, in many of these instances, I've been able to find a current course and then modify it to what I need. Occasionally we do, I need a certain question because we do common testing. And so in rare cases, I'm coding in a question or two to get what I need to assess my students. So if you happen to be a math instructor and you happen to want to see my courses, the course IDs are there and you can copy those over into your own instructor account. You do need to have a My Open Math instructor account to have access to this. So, and then part of my OER work has also been to create supplemental resources for the OpenStax textbooks. I started out by creating H5P activities, and that was for Calculus 1. But I've also created some PowerPoint slides for classroom presentations and things like that. So those are all published on the Pressbooks site, and it's a collection for all of the courses called Supplemental Resources for OpenStax.
Thank you, Susan. And Greg, would you just like highlight really quickly what you said in the chat about the barriers that we faced? I liked that chat comment. Maybe talk about that really quick.
Well, right. If you didn't see the chat, and I probably put it very confusingly, but basically one of the issues that other schools have had and we did not have was some of the required elements for our gen ed degree. We didn't have anyone creating OER for those, and so they became choke points in the Z degree creation. I imagine that's even harder at a 4-year degree level, but at 2 years, that was one of our main challenges. So to find those faculty to identify those choke points, first of all, and then to find those faculty who are willing or able to kind of create an OER alternative, that was really how we got our Z degree successfully off the ground. And so, as I said, it's the faculty who are doing this work, not me, but that part of identification is really an important step. And I know a lot of schools, OER kind of lives in the library. I think one thing that really helped us, it was not having an OER librarian at first. So not to denigrate what Jason's doing, but we had to figure out how we're going to implement this. And we wished we had an OER librarian that could do all this, but we just came together as faculty and kind of worked that out. And so to find those leaders or those champions is really a first key step.
And I think, like, thinking about the OER champion model, us being here today and sharing how we work collaboratively, obviously we're in different disciplines, but I'm thinking of one example even from this week where, like, I don't know Susan's area of expertise, but I was just chatting with another math faculty member, and the faculty member just knew that I worked in Open and mentioned that they were interested, and I was able to just shoot Susan a quick email and say, oh, hey, you should follow through with this instructor. They're interested in learning more. And Susan's done the same thing for me, right? So because we work together, we have kind of a learning community at our campus around OER, even though we are all from different disciplines. It really helps us to all be focused on that common goal of pointing faculty toward the resource. And Susan's been an amazing resource for math. She's done so much great work. So now I'll talk about English a little bit. That's my area. And English, so I didn't know anything about open pedagogy at all. I probably maybe even had a little negative bias toward it, kind of like we talked about with challenges that faculty face. But I, on a whim, applied for a fellowship with the state to work on an open education project. And I didn't think I would get it, and then I did. So I didn't know anything at all, but we worked with, some of you may be familiar with Rebus's textbook success program. Our state partnered with Rebus, and the publication that my team created, sorry, I'm looking over here because I got two screens and I've got it up, is this, I put the link, I'll put the link in the chat, but it's this Write What Matters. And it's a truly modular open education resource. So this was built with faculty. Joel and I are both at CWI, but our colleague Amy Minervini is at Lewis Clark State College. And we focused on the Idaho outcomes. So this was designed for all students in Idaho, not just students at our institution. It's what we call a modular platform resource, which means if you were to try to print out the entire textbook, it's thousands of pages long. That's not how you would work with this resource. Instead, we've collected a lot of things that will be useful for all instructors in the state who teach, we have commonly numbered courses here, English 101 or English 102. So lots of great resources here. We remixed some existing open education resources that were out there. There's some really good stuff in English, so we were fortunate. And we also added a lot of our own things, including examples of Idaho students writing that, like some of them came from that undergraduate research journal that I showed you. So this has been really a fun project for us. And the cover was designed by an Idaho State Board of Education intern, which was also really fun to get to work with the student intern on the cover. So we do need to get a little better at revisioning. Those of you who work with open education resources know that can be a challenge. Like sometimes we need to get better about communicating our revisions, but this particular textbook is being used. We've had, I don't know, I think the last time I checked, more than 175,000 views to it. We know it's taught for all English 101 courses at the College of Western Idaho. So we were able to take our entire English 101, all of those sections, to an OER model. And we'll be implementing the same thing in fall of 2025 for English 102. So that we were able to move from where people were teaching lots of different textbooks, varying costs for students across the program, to now we all have this common textbook. The modular platform resource approach is interesting because there's still quite a bit of freedom in how individual faculty teach the course, right? Like they can bring in their own supplemental readings. The library has been great for us on this too. Our students do have access to Wall Street Journal and New York Times with student accounts. So a lot of us will use essays or examples from those publications in conjunction with this free OER resource. But also because it's modular and a platform resource, you can choose what you want to do. And our next step and what we're really working on with our webinars and trainings is to get our faculty members to create their own versions of this book and to empower them to truly embrace the idea of remixing and reusing the work, to put their own stamp on these textbooks. So we've done some successful trainings for faculty. We'll be doing more. And also we've had adjuncts who've attended those, and our dual credit instructors have also been involved in that. So overall, I feel like this particular example has been really a source of cohesion for our students and our faculty at CWI, but also it's been fun to get to see how it's used across the state, back to those state meetings and the ability to share things out with other people. And I think Greg might not know this, but we are in the process in English of developing a new Z degree program. So we're developing a professional writing track for our English degree, and the professional writing track will be a Z degree and will incorporate all open education resources. And then since I know everyone's talking about AI, I didn't mention it, but I'm also one of 2 AI fellows for the state of Idaho. So if you have any questions about AI or ever want to reach out to me, I could talk your ear off. I'm sorry, I probably have talked everyone's ear off on this at CWI on this. But we did, Joel Glad and I, who also collaborated on Write What Matters, very early on, we were able to develop and implement some training for students on how to use Cite Acknowledge AI, as well as like some just basic science and information about how large language models work. And I think we were one of the first people to roll truly open training. And this is one of the things we like about open education resources and Pressbooks in particular, that when something new happens, it's very easy to make updates. It's very easy to roll out new training like this that can help students to be successful. So overall, I think in the English program, I've personally been really happy. And I will say also, I didn't add this, but as our arts and humanities representative as our champion for the school, I think another big win has been our Humanities 207 project. and Jason was so instrumental. Jason, I don't think that team could have pulled that off without you. But
Not
so
sure they're entirely finished.
well, are we ever finished with an
Yeah.
OER, right? Like, I don't know
And I
if
got
we're
to
ever
work with
finished.
one of those classes this week as well. That was using.
Yeah. And like, I mean, but just the fact that like art history, that's a pretty art history intensive class, and those textbooks can be so expensive. And that was a collaborative effort with some faculty. So I'll find that link too, or if one of you want to grab it and share it in the chat, to our Humanities 207 textbook. It's really great. I think, Greg, thank you, Greg. Aren't they getting an award for the college? We should talk about celebrating in awards, but
Yes, they will. The OER Creation Award.
yeah.
Yeah. And speaking
So
of modular, I think this one runs over 4,000 pages. So with all the copyright and Creative Commons licensing, that was a big lift. Thank you, Jason.
yeah, Jason was really instrumental. And I will say too, like, I didn't bring that up, but Jason, he had on his slides some great resources for fair use. And that's been one of the things that I've loved most about having an OER librarian. I did a critical theory textbook for my literary analysis class. And, it's kind of hard with literature. Like, I didn't know. I was probably pushing the boundaries of fair use. I don't know if any of y'all have done that, but I was pushing some boundaries. So just knowing that Jason would sign off on that for me after reviewing it, it was nice to have a second set of eyes on it, right? And then I can put that information that I have done a fair use analysis and a justification. Jason really helped me with that. So like under each passage that I've taken and believe it to be fair use, I've given a justification for why I think that passage is fair use. And, worst case scenario, someone will ask me to take it down, right? But at least it shows that we were intentional and thoughtful about how we incorporated some modern text into this literary analysis textbook. So yeah.
I popped those links in the chat. I think our proxy.
Oh,
I think
thank
our
you.
has changed, so I'll update the slides later. There, you changed them to only, so
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
I did. Yeah,
that's better for a presentation.
Yeah, that'll be great. So, like we wanted to share. I don't know that we want to go through. We have a little bit of time, Greg. What's your preference? Do you want me to open the pitch deck and share that, or?
Let me just put the link in the chat so you can talk about it while folks are looking at it.
Yeah, thank you. If you'll just grab that. So this pitch deck, we won't like pitch to you because like we don't need to pitch to you. Like you all know what you're doing. But this is something we developed and we absolutely wanted to share it out with you today so that, when you're thinking about what the model might look like for your own campus, this should be really easy to adapt. And so I'm not like going to read the slides here or anything, but like here, we've Creative Commons licensed it, CC by NC. And this just tells you what you can do with the slide deck. So any of this that is useful to you or that you think you could incorporate, you're more than welcome to take this model. One thing I love about this is Greg is very good about tracking our savings. Greg, do you want to talk really quickly about why that's important to communicate the textbook savings?
Yeah, and to be clear, this is the savings through 2023. We have obviously a little more current information, but this is just a template for you on your pitch deck. But yeah, we do track when a textbook is converted over from a traditional textbook that students pay for to OER. We calculate at that point in time the new retail cost and then the number of students at the day of census. And to the point Liza was making, I think by this spring we'll have reached $1 million in student savings after about 3 years of implementing our OER. And the increases in like English, in our COM 101 sections that move to OER, when those big sections move over, it's an amazing amount. So I would say COM itself saves students over $250,000 each semester. Their textbook was $87 before, and now it's a free OER. So it's significant. Students do, as we know, sometimes not buy the text because it's too expensive. And I think our pitch deck talks about that, some of the barriers that students face when textbooks are too costly or even costly at all, because sometimes students are making those decisions. Do I pay rent? do I buy my textbook? And then if they don't have the textbook, it's so easy to fall behind in the class because we want students to read the textbook, obviously. So
Yeah, that's absolutely a huge benefit.
We make sure we keep track of that.
Yeah, and also like where I've seen Greg be super effective too, like, wow, 1 million sounds really great. And that number sounds really great to administrators too. So like really, we talked about celebrating that Humanities 207 textbook, right? Like building in celebrations, building in recognition for your faculty who are doing the work, and then also being able to communicate the value to administrators. We have found that to be really important to our success in making sure that our program and our model is sustainable, right? That's always the concern. So this would be, you can use this for your own faculty to survey them in OER. These are, again, some common costs. This is what Greg was kind of talking about. It's an often cited study with a pretty large N with 22,000 students, but it is from 2016, so it's getting a little bit older now. But we can see that, that definitely textbook costs are important. So that usually speaks to faculty. The whole audience for this is your faculty, right? For this pitch deck, this is what you're sharing out with your programs, with your departments. I think we've been invited to in-service at the beginning of the semester to present these. That's the type of situation where you would do this. So we do a little education as well. And I do think like we should keep that in mind when we talk about free versus low cost. Again, Jason and our librarians have been really influential. My English 215 surveyable mythology is not open, but it is free to students because both of the textbooks that we use, we have unlimited subscriptions so the students can all access them through our library. So, you can be creative. Keep that in mind when you're doing free or low cost. We talk about our institutional goals. We personally think it's really important for you to think about where you want to go with your goals. So you would want to tailor that to your institution. Again, back to tracking the cost, we also track who is using OER. Our philosophy program is another example, or CWI 101, that's our first year experience course, where we are saving a lot of money. I think the philosophy program is a Z degree, so we use open education resources throughout that program. Students do not have to purchase textbooks. And then again, here's our model with stipends. I know a lot of you mentioned cost. I think the stipends have been one of the most beneficial things for getting faculty involved because a lot of faculty want to save students money. And what I tell them is if you can really embrace open pedagogy, you will take control of your classroom in a way that will just really free you as a teacher. It's a little bit of upfront investment, but down the road, it's amazing, right? So we do have, Greg, that stipend process we still have. Do you want to speak to that really quickly?
Well, I do, and that's part of the funding that we got from the state to implement Z degrees at all the community colleges. The stipend process obviously is, there's some verification that's involved in that, but basically we have investigation stage where faculty can investigate if there's a good OER for their course, and that pays a little bit of money, around $500. They need to document what they've researched, and if they found something that they love, they can implement it and it can end there. If not, they can go on to stage 2, which is more about remixing and finding multiple sources that they might be able to use, working with Jason if it's going to be a press book, those type of things. And then that's a per hour fee, and so faculty keep track of their hours. It's only up to 50 hours, which most creation of OER is a lot more than that, but that's where we've limited. In some cases, we've given exceptions to that, like the arts. The Humanities 207 text was just so massive that obviously it took more than one person and it took more than 50 hours. So there are exceptions, but in general, the stipends worked well. What I would suggest as far as an OER Champions, if we're talking about that model, if you don't have funds set aside for that at your school, a course release is a really good way. If you can get a department chair or a dean or someone that can give a course release to a faculty, sometimes just freeing up that time, that 3-credit teaching time, in exchange for them working as an OER champion, kind of being that voice, developing OER as a department. Like, here's the OER that we can use for Math 143, for example. That can be a really effective use of school resources that doesn't cost you anything more, but you do need to get some of those administrators excited about that possibility. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other thing on this list, when we think about like how we applied or how we became OER champions, some of the things on this list, like Susan is an expert at latex, right? I don't know, Susan, do you want to talk about that a little? Because you've helped other faculty with that, I know.
Yeah, so with mathematical and scientific notation and everything, that sometimes you get into press books or somewhere and you need your notation to look right. And LaTeX is the programming language that can format things to look the way they're supposed to look. And in press books, there is just like a LaTeX feature, and it's pretty simple to do. You can also use LaTeX when you're building something in H5P. So
Yeah. And so you've done H5P as well, and I've done a little with H5P. And then I think on our campus, I bring the Creative Commons licensing piece. So when people have questions about Creative Commons licensing, since I've done the certificate course and been involved with that organization, people usually come to me and I'll walk them through kind of the choices that they might want to consider in licensing their work. And there's been a question in the chat that Greg highlighted that about our stipend model. So just for investigating OER, whether the faculty choose to adopt or not, they can still get some money for that first step of the process. I'm curious, Greg, if I could ask a follow-up question on that. Have you had anybody who's just done step one and then not adopted? I don't know. I was curious.
Maybe one out of the 50 faculty. There might have been one.
Yeah.
There's like, I just can't find anything. But then eventually another faculty also got a stipend for the same course and did find something. So we give every faculty the opportunity to look. But yeah, most often they do find something.
Yeah, I thought that had been the case too, but I wasn't sure. So yeah, in general, what we like about this and is that I do think, and some of you had put this in the chat too, like I do think that the time and the cost barrier is just really one of the biggest things, especially if we're working with adjuncts, and adjuncts at our campus are eligible for this as well. You know, there's just a lot of demands on people's time. And at our community college, full-time faculty teach a 5-5 course load. So having that course release Greg talked about is kind of really essential for us to even be able to do this additional service work. So Greg's been a great advocate for us. So you've already seen these examples, but you can see them. This again is the pitch deck you could use. These are some testimonials, and we would recommend gathering those from your own school. But so we have two students here who shared how they felt about open education resources. And then like, that's a quote from me that, which I've already said, because I really do believe this, like, I used to think of my pedagogy as student-centered, and now I view it as learner-driven, and like really shifting that mindset has been great. So, and that's actually the end of our presentation. So I don't know if we would love to open it up for questions if anybody has questions. And there's our contact information here as well.
What are some things you would like to think about or implement at your campus? Does the OER Champion model make sense at where you're at?
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm looking through the chat to see if there's anything we missed. Let's see. Oh, I saw that someone's working on their first C degree right now. That's good.
Yes, keep up the good work.
Yeah. It is a process. It's definitely been a learning experience. I wonder, just since we have a couple minutes, does like any last takeaways from our presenters? Jason, any last bit of advice for faculty who might be considering this model?
Well, I think one cool thing that's sort of a subsidiary benefit is that when you, and Liza hinted at this in terms of how adopting OER and sometimes Liza actually builds her OER texts while she's teaching a class.
Always.
So it changes a lot of things and opens up a lot of opportunities. Like Greg mentioned, the Com 101s are all using an OER text now. And so Johnny and the rest of the leadership for that class were, of course, doing a little bit of general course rethinking and course redesign along with it. And they reached out to us in the Learning Commons, the library, the tutoring center, and the writing center, and asked us to put together a series of short videos that correlated to whatever section of the OER text they were using that week. So those are the kinds of things that start to happen when you start to get a critical mass of people using OER and asking questions. There are loads of knock-on benefits. So pitch that
Jason,
as well.
Since Jason called me out, I had to share my passion projects in the chat. So if any of you want to check them out, I did teach a fully integrated AI English 102 course last semester. I'm doing some data analysis on it right now. And I totally built that airplane while I was flying it because AI changes so quickly. But the Cyborgs and Centaurs book, students really loved it and they love the approach. And then also I shared a class that I'm teaching this term, which is writing with AI. So these are all openly licensed. Feel free to take anything you want. And I license all of my prompts as CC0. So they're public domain. You don't have to credit me or do anything with that. But yeah, Susan, any last takeaways? And I think we're almost at time. So we're at time.
We're at time, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you all so much for being here. This was really fun for us to get to share what we're doing at our campus. And feel free to contact us or reach out if you have any questions or want to just follow up with some stuff. We would love to chat with you more. And good luck with your Z degrees and OER endeavors.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy OER week, everyone.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work.
Week.
Thank you so much. And we will, as was mentioned earlier, the recording will be posted online and we will post your slides too. That way your information will be there. Thank you
so much, Manon.